Grade 10, I'm going to solve the revision sheet with you. If there is any problem following up, you already have the questions and the answer on the website, on the school's website. So, first question. Which of the following is a major principle upon which the cell theory is based? As we said, the cell theory is based on one important principle, that all cells are made of other cells. So 1C. Number 2, identify the type of cell present, the cell shown in figure 3.1. As you can see, this is a cell that contains organelles and that contains a cell membrane, so the answer is B. It's an eukaryotic cell. Number 3, which organelle is the storehouse of most of a cell's genetic information? We said that the nucleus is present in the center of the cell and it contains the DNA, and the DNA carries the genetic information of the cell. So what is the organelle that's carrying that cell's genetic information? It is the nucleus. So 3D. Number 4. Which phrase best describes rough endoplasmic reticulum? We said that the endoplasmic reticulum could be rough if it has ribosomes on its surface, or smooth if it has no ribosomes. So 4A, it's studded with ribosomes. Number 5. Which organelles supply energy to the cell? We said that the mitochondria are the energy supplier of the cell. So 5C. Number 6. Which organelles contain enzymes that break down all cell parts? As we said, all the cell parts, they have a certain half-life. When their life ends, the cell needs to get rid of them. Which organelle is responsible for getting rid of the cell organelles that are dead? It's the lysosomes. 6B. Number 7. Which organelles are unique to plant cells? Of course, without thinking, it's the chloroplasts. They contain the chlorophyll that performs photosynthesis. Number 8. Which process occurs inside the chloroplast? Of course, it is photosynthesis. 8C. Now we look at this diagram. This diagram shows the outside of the cell, and then the inside of the cell. And the question is, which type of receptor is shown in this diagram? As long as the receptor is inside the cell, the answer is intracellular. So number 9D. Number 10. A protein that detects a signal in a molecule and performs an action in response is called a receptor. The receptor is the receiver present on the surface of the cell or on the inside of the cell, and is responsible for reading the signals and producing a certain response. Number 11. A solution that is hypotonic to a cell has B, fewer solutes than the cell. If it's hypertonic, this means that it contains more solutes than the cell. Number 12. Transport proteins play a role in both. Of course, the transport proteins they play a role in both the passive and the active transport. Some of the substances, they pass through the surface, the cell membrane without needing energy, and in this case we call it passive transport, although some of them they pass through the transport proteins, while others they need energy, and in this case we call it active transport, and they also, some of them also use transport proteins. 13. Which process requires no energy from the cell? Of course, it's D, facilitated diffusion. Because exocytosis, endocytosis, and active transport, all the three of them are forms of transport that requires energy from the cell. Number 14. Which organelles are involved in the process called endocytosis? In the endocytosis, a bag or a vesicle is going to open at the surface of the cell membrane. It is going to collect the substance that needs to enter inside the cell, and then it is going to get to the inside of the cell, opens and lets the substance out. So during endocytosis, the substance that needs to be transported inside the cell is going to be carried within a vesicle. 14b. 15. Which process is occurring when a vesicle fuses with the cell membrane and releases its contents to the outside? It is the opposite of endocytosis. It is exocytosis. 15C. 16. Cell theory establishes which of the following conclusions about the cell? Again, the cell theory is based on the fact that all the cells, they come from cells. So 16C, all cells are produced by other living cells. 17, we're going to look at this figure from a prokaryotic cell. And then the question is, how is the cell shown in figure 3A different from, this is an eukaryotic cell, of course, as we said before, because it has a cell membrane and it has all the organelles. So how is this different from the prokaryotic cell? The answer is A. It has a nucleus. As long as the cell has a nucleus, it is different from a prokaryotic cell like the bacteria and some of the amoeba. Number 18. Which statement is true about a nucleus? D. It is surrounded by a double membrane. The nucleus is surrounded by a double membrane, and this double membrane contains pores that allow some DNA and allows the ribosomes to pass from the inside of the nucleus to the outside. 19. Which organelles are present both inside the nucleolus and on the surface of the endoplasmic reticulum? It is the ribosomes. Remember, we said the organelles that are present on the surface of the endoplasmic reticulum are the ribosomes. 20. Which phrase describes the function of the mitochondria? 20C. Of course, it supplies energy to the cell. 21. Which organelles are, 21. Which organelles are involved in defending the cell against the viruses? Of course, it is the lysosomes. The lysosomes, they contain enzymes that can take in substances, and these enzymes, they can destroy the substances that are taken inside the lysosomes. And sometimes the lysosomes, they release these enzymes and they make sure whatever they want to destroy is destroyed by the effect of these enzymes. So the lysosomes, they contain enzymes, and of course part of their function is to defend the cell against viruses. Number 22. Which features are found in plant cells but not in animal cells? Again, we have the answer is C. It's the cell walls and the chloroplasts. 23. Mitochondria and chloroplast are both sites of a energy conversion, because each one of them is responsible for converting a certain type of energy into ATP that is used by the cell. 24. Which phrase describes the process shown in figure 3.2? Let's look at figure 3.2. This is the outside of the cell on one side, and then we have the inside on the other side. So number 24, the answer is D, the formation of a receptor and then a ligand complex. They are going to both bind together in order to transport a certain substance to the inside of the cell. Number 25. Which type of receptor binds to ligands that cannot enter in the cell? If the ligand cannot enter the cell, which means that they are on the outside, they are called membrane receptor, because they are going to remain on the outside. It cannot enter the cell. Number 26. Water enters a cell when the solution surrounding the cell is, so whenever the solution that is surrounding the cell is hypotonic to the cell, it contains less solute. If it contains less solute, this means that it contains more water. In this state, the water is going to pass from the area of high concentration of water, from the area which contains more water to the area that contains less water. So 26, the answer is B. 27. Which of the following phrases best describes the active transport? So we have two types of transport. As we said, we have the passive transport and we have the active transport. in the passive transport, the cell doesn't need energy to transport substances across the cell membrane, while in the active transport, energy is required. So 27, which phrase best describes active transport? A, moves substances against the concentration gradient. The reason passive transport doesn't require energy is that the substances are moving down the concentration gradient. Down the concentration gradient means from the area of high concentration to the area of low concentration. But in case of active transport, it can be moved against the concentration gradient, and this is the reason the cell needs energy in case of active transport. 28. Which phrase best describes the process of facilitated diffusion? D. It requires no energy from the cell. It is going to use transport proteins, but it requires no energy from the cell because it's a type of passive transport. 29. Which organelles are involved in the process called endocytosis? B. The lysosomes and the vesicles. They are both sacs that are present inside the cell, and they are responsible for the endocytosis. They transport substances across the cell membrane within this sac. 30. Which sentence best describes exocytosis? C. A vesicle fuses to the cell membrane and its contents leave the cell. So this bag that contains a certain substance, it is going to stick to the cell membrane, and then it's going to open to the outside and let its contents out. 31. What molecule carries chemical energy that cells use for their function? ATP, of course. We said that ATP is the energy currency of the cell. Number 32. Which of the following molecules found in the food we eat is most commonly broken down to make ATP? What is most commonly? We said your body first goes to carbohydrates. 32A. 33. Which of the following directly provides the energy needed for cell functions? 33A. A phosphate group that is removed from ATP. Again and again, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. 34. Chemosynthesis is a process through which some organisms use energy from chemicals in their environment to build sugars in the absence of sunlight. Photosynthesis is done in the presence of sunlight. Chemosynthesis is done in the absence of sunlight. 35. We're going to look at this figure which contains the chloroplasts, and we're going to look at the stacks that form the thylakoids. Okay, so water molecules labeled A in figure 4.1 are going to the thylakoid to take part in which process? The thylakoids, they make part of the chloroplast, so of course they make part that they are going to take part of in the photosynthesis. So 35A, light dependent reactions. Number 36. Which of the following is a reactant in photosynthesis? CO2. Of course, during photosynthesis, the plants use the carbon dioxide from the air. They use the water and they use the sunlight to form oxygen and to form sugar. So in this case, the reactant that forms them is carbon dioxide. It's one of the reactants of photosynthesis. 37. Where in plant cells are the energy absorbing molecule for photosynthesis located? 37B, in the thylakoids, which are part of the chloroplasts. 38. What happens to the sugars that are made during photosynthesis? C. They can be used for cellular respiration. It starts with photosynthesis and then they have to be used for cellular respiration in order to help the plant grow and repair. 39. The part of cellular respiration that needs oxygen takes place inside, of course, the mitochondria. So the photosynthesis in the chloroplasts, and then the cellular respiration takes place in the mitochondria. 40. Which process is best presented by the following chemical reaction? Sugars with oxygen, they give carbon dioxide and water. Of course, it's cellular respiration, because we said that in photosynthesis we use the carbon dioxide and the water to form sugar and oxygen. 41. We're going to look at this electron transport, okay? Which of the following is best shown by figure 4.2 below? So what do you see here? You see electrons transported to the inside, and then here the hydrogen is pumped to the outside. So 41D is an electron transport chain. 42. An electron transport chain that produces ATP is part of both the cellular respiration process and, of course, photosynthesis. 43. In which process is lactic acid formed when there is not enough oxygen present for cellular respiration to take place? Of course, whenever there's not enough oxygen, what happens? It is fermentation. So whenever you have oxygen, you have cellular respiration. When your cells can't find oxygen, they use fermentation. 44. Before cellular respiration, glucose must be broken down by the process of glycolysis. Remember, we said lysis means breaking down. Glycolysis is the breaking down of glucose. 45. Which of the following is a product of the Krebs cycle? Of course, carbon dioxide. Which of the following statements is true of ATP? D. It converts sunlight into chemical energy. It's very important. Sorry. It transfers energy to cell processes. I'm so sorry. I meant B, not D. So for the ATP, it is the energy currency of the cell, and it's responsible for transferring energy for cellular processes. 47. The breakdown of which of the following provides the largest number of ATP per molecule? It is the lipids. We said that your body first goes to carbohydrates for energy, but the carbohydrates, they provide less energy for lipids, but still they are the first point to which your body goes to for energy, and then it goes to lipids. It's usually the last resort to go to proteins for the production of energy. 48. Which of the following reactions provides the chemical energy for most cell functions? 48A. ATP, it loses the phosphate group and becomes ADP, because ATP is the energy currency of the cell. 49. Which process would bacteria living near a heat vent on the ocean floor use to build carbon-based molecules such as sugar? Of course, it's chemosynthesis, because there is no light to perform light-dependent reactions. They cannot perform cellular respiration because they do not have enough oxygen. So they perform chemosynthesis. They produce the energy through chemical processes. 50. Which of the following best describes the molecules labeled B in figure 4.1? Look at these molecules which are labeled B, and they are going to enter into the thylakoids. The molecules that are labeled B, this is carbon dioxide entering the Calvin cycle. Okay. So we're going to stop here, and then we're going to continue solving the questions starting from 51 in the next video.